Have you ever felt lost, anxious, or weary, wondering if anyone truly cares for your every need? Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about a timeless truth that has comforted and strengthened millions for thousands of years, the promise of God's provision, guidance, and protection, beautifully captured in Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. These words remind us that no matter the chaos around us, there is a divine presence watching over us, guiding us, and meeting our needs. Let's unpack this in three ways. Psalm 23 begins with a bold declaration, I shall not want. At first glance, it might sound like a simple statement about having enough food or money, but it is far deeper than that. It is a profound assurance, a spiritual anchor, and a promise that stretches beyond the material. To say, I shall not want, is to affirm that God provides for our every need, even in ways that we do not immediately understand. It is a statement of trust, an expression of faith that acknowledges that no matter how uncertain life may seem, there is a force, God Himself, who is actively working to meet our needs. Consider the daily life of a single mother, someone many of us may know personally or have witnessed from afar. She wakes up before the sun, juggling 2 jobs, exhausted before her day has truly begun. Her worries are many: how to pay the rent, how to make sure her children have breakfast, how to find a quiet moment for herself. Life feels heavy, relentless, and sometimes hopeless. Yet one morning, when she opens the door to begin another day, she finds that a neighbor has quietly left groceries on her doorstep. At that moment, she is reminded that provision often arrives in unexpected ways. It is a tangible example of how God's care reaches us, often through people, events, or circumstances we might overlook. The food on her doorstep is more than sustenance. It is a message, a whisper that God sees her struggle and meets her needs even before she asks. This is the essence of the verse, I shall not want. It is an invitation to trust, not only in times of plenty, but especially in seasons of scarcity. Too often, we focus on what we lack, fixating on our worries, our debts, or our unmet desires. Yet this verse calls us to shift our perspective, to look at the unseen hand of God that provides continuously, even in ways we might not immediately recognize. It reminds us that provision is not just about accumulation or wealth. It is about sufficiency, about knowing that our essential needs are met, and about finding contentment in God's faithfulness. Faith and gratitude play a pivotal role in experiencing God's provision. Research in psychology has shown that practicing gratitude and nurturing a sense of faith can significantly impact mental health. People who cultivate a grateful outlook tend to cope better with stress, maintain healthier relationships, and experience a greater sense of peace. When we trust in God's provision, we are practicing a form of gratitude that extends beyond simple acknowledgement. It is an active, daily choice to believe that God is present in our lives, orchestrating circumstances and opening doors that we cannot yet see. This kind of trust transforms the way we perceive challenges. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by a shortage, we begin to notice the subtle ways in which our needs are being met. A phone call from a friend offering support, a small financial blessing at the right time, or a solution to a long-standing problem. These are all expressions of provision that become visible when our hearts are attuned to faith. Provision is not limited to physical needs. It encompasses emotional and spiritual support as well. Consider the person who feels lonely or rejected, unsure if they belong or if anyone cares. God's provision manifests in the form of comforting relationships, moments of peace, and the gentle reassurance that we are never truly alone. In times of anxiety or depression, provision may come as a serene moment of clarity, a comforting verse, or the presence of a trusted friend who listens without judgment. These are powerful reminders that provision is holistic. It addresses the body, the mind, and the soul. Real-life examples of provision are everywhere, often in ways that we overlook because we are too focused on what we lack. Think of a student struggling with tuition, praying fervently for a breakthrough. One day, an unexpected scholarship is awarded, covering expenses that seemed impossible to manage. Or consider a worker who fears job loss, only to find an opportunity in a place they had never considered, where their talents are recognized and their needs met. These are everyday miracles, reflections of the truth behind the words, "I shall not want." The concept of provision also teaches us patience. Provision rarely comes exactly in the way we envision it. We might pray for one solution, but God provides another, sometimes better, sometimes unseen. A story that comes to mind is that of a man who spent years dreaming of a particular career path. He prayed diligently, yet doors remained closed. Eventually, an entirely different opportunity emerged, one that aligned perfectly with his skills, passions, and purpose. At first, he was hesitant and disappointed, but in hindsight he realized that the path he longed for was not God's provision for him. The path that opened was. Provision requires faith, patience, and trust that God knows what we truly need, even when we do not. Another aspect of provision is its call to generosity. When we experience provision, we are not meant to hoard it for ourselves. We are called to share with others, to be the instrument through which God provides. That single mother who received groceries on her doorstep may, in the future, be the one to help another struggling family. In doing so, she participates in the cycle of provision, a living testimony that God's care is abundant and far-reaching. Provision is not just personal, it is communal, rippling outward, creating networks of support and hope that strengthen society as a whole. Perhaps most importantly, trusting in God's provision transforms our mindset. It allows us to let go of fear, anxiety, and the endless striving that can dominate our lives. When we believe, truly believe, that our needs will be met, we are free to focus on our purpose, our relationships, and our service to others. We begin to live with confidence, not arrogance, and with hope, not despair. This kind of trust does not make life easier. It makes life meaningful. It gives us the courage to face challenges with grace, to endure hardship with resilience, and to celebrate joy with gratitude. In moments of doubt, when the weight of the world seems unbearable, returning to the words, "I shall not want," is a profound act of faith. It is a reminder that provision is not about control but about surrender. Surrender to a power greater than ourselves, a power that knows our needs before we voice them and meets them in perfect timing. It encourages us to pause, to notice the small blessings that surround us daily, and to trust that no matter how bleak circumstances may appear, we are seen, known, and cared for. In practical terms, trusting in provision can shape our daily habits. We become more attentive to opportunities, more generous with what we have, and more patient in waiting for what we need. We learn to discern between wants and needs, to cultivate contentment, and to recognize that life's truest wealth lies not in accumulation, but in the assurance that we are provided for, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. Psalm 23:3's promise, "I shall not want," is both comforting and empowering. It calls us to live with faith, to remain alert to God's subtle workings in our lives, and to respond with gratitude and generosity. It reminds us that no matter the storm, the struggle, or the scarcity, God's provision is ever present, and that our task is to trust, to recognize, and to receive it with an open heart. Provision is a daily miracle, often unseen, yet always there, sustaining us, guiding us, and reminding us that we are never truly alone. When we carry this truth into our hearts and our daily routines, life begins to change. Anxiety diminishes, hope rises, and we find peace in the knowledge that we are cared for. We begin to see each challenge not as a threat, but as an opportunity for God's provision to manifest. We learn to pause, to pray, and to look for the subtle ways in which our needs are being met. And in doing so, we discover the profound beauty of trust, the transformative power of gratitude, and the life-changing assurance of God's unwavering care. The psalm continues with a promise that is as comforting as it is profound. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. There is something deeply soothing in these words, a promise of guidance and restoration that resonates with the very core of our being. Life, as we know, is rarely straightforward. It is filled with uncertainties, crossroads, and moments of doubt. We are often faced with choices that seem overwhelming, challenges that appear insurmountable, and decisions that carry weight far beyond our immediate understanding. In these moments, the guidance of God is not merely a suggestion, it is a lifeline, a gentle hand that leads us through the complexities of life and restores our weary souls. Imagine a young professional, someone navigating a career change after years in a field that no longer brings fulfillment. They feel uncertain, anxious, and perhaps even fearful about the future. Every option seems fraught with risk, every path unclear. In these moments, the guidance of God often comes not as a thunderous voice, but as quiet clarity in the midst of confusion. Perhaps it is during a morning walk when the mind is uncluttered and open that a solution becomes apparent. Perhaps it is in a conversation with a mentor or a friend who, without knowing it, provides the insight needed to take the next step. These moments of subtle revelation, these nudges toward the right choice, are the ways in which God leads us beside still waters. Guidance is rarely dramatic. It is patient, gentle, and perfectly timed. God's guidance is transformative because it meets us exactly where we are, offering direction tailored to our needs and circumstances. It restores our souls, bringing peace to hearts weighed down by anxiety, regret, or confusion. There is an emotional power in knowing that someone is watching over our journey, someone who understands the full scope of our struggles and aspirations. It is not merely about choosing the right career, making the right financial decision, or avoiding danger. Guidance is about aligning our lives with purpose, finding clarity amidst chaos, and experiencing a profound sense of peace, even when external circumstances remain unpredictable. Consider the parent who is uncertain about how to guide their child through adolescence. Every decision feels monumental. Every choice carries consequences. Yet, in quiet moments of prayer and reflection, answers begin to emerge. A timely conversation with a teacher, an unexpected opportunity for the child, a moment of insight during prayer. These are all manifestations of divine guidance. The parent may not realize it at the moment, but in hindsight, the path reveals itself clearly, and the stress of uncertainty transforms into a profound sense of reassurance. Trusting in God's guidance allows us to navigate these life-altering decisions without being paralyzed by fear. Guidance is not limited to major life decisions. It extends to the subtle, everyday moments that shape who we are. It might be the encouragement to speak kindly in a moment of anger, the insight to offer help when someone is struggling, or the clarity to step away from a situation that threatens our peace. These small acts, guided by divine wisdom, compound over time to create lives of integrity, fulfillment, and joy. By trusting in this guidance, we develop discernment, a keen awareness of what aligns with our values, what brings peace to our hearts, and what contributes positively to the lives of those around us. Real-life experiences confirm this truth time and again. Take the story of an entrepreneur faced with a risky business decision. All log, IC and data might point toward one path, but in moments of reflection, prayer, and seeking counsel, another path emerges. Less obvious, perhaps more challenging, yet ultimately more rewarding. When pursued with trust in God's guidance, this path leads to sustainable success, meaningful impact, and personal fulfillment. The lesson here is clear. Guidance may not always be immediate or obvious, but when we remain patient, receptive, and faithful, we find that God's leading is perfect and complete. Guidance also teaches resilience. Life will invariably bring obstacles, detours, and failures. Without divine direction, it is easy to feel lost, discouraged, or defeated. With guidance, however, even setbacks become instructive. They are not the end of the journey, but signposts directing us toward growth, learning, and eventual restoration. A shepherd gently redirecting a wandering sheep. God's guidance nudges us back onto the path that nourishes our souls and aligns with our highest good. This form of guidance is not coercive. It respects our free will while providing a steady, reliable framework for navigating life. Trusting in God's guidance requires both patience and courage. It asks us to let go of the illusion that we control everything, to embrace the unknown, and to act with faith even when the next step is unclear. It challenges us to listen, to reflect, and to remain attentive to the subtle signals of divine wisdom. Many of us have experienced moments where guidance seemed absent, yet in retrospect, those periods of uncertainty were crucial preparation, building strength, wisdom, and perspective that would only become clear later. It is in these periods that faith is most critical, reminding us that even when the way forward is invisible, we are not walking alone. The restorative aspect of guidance cannot be overstated. Life can leave us weary, exhausted, and emotionally depleted. Stress, disappointment, and grief have a way of eroding our sense of peace. God's guidance is restorative. It replenishes our energy, heals our hearts, and renews our spirit. Like still waters, it offers calm in the midst of turbulence, providing the clarity and serenity necessary to move forward with confidence and hope. Accepting this restoration, we gain perspective, resilience, and the inner strength to face life's challenges without despair. Guidance is also relational. It manifests through people, experiences, and opportunities. A timely word from a friend, an unexpected encounter, or a sudden insight during prayer can redirect our path in profound ways. These moments remind us that guidance is not abstract. It is practical, immediate, and intimately connected to our daily lives. Recognizing these opportunities requires attentiveness and humility, a willingness to pause, reflect, and respond with faith. The subtle nature of guidance often makes it easy to overlook, yet it is in these quiet nudges that the most significant life transformations occur. Finally, embracing God's guidance transforms how we approach uncertainty. Instead of fearing the unknown, we learn to see it as an opportunity for growth, learning, and divine alignment. Instead of being paralyzed by indecision, we cultivate discernment and clarity. And instead of allowing life's unpredictability to overwhelm us, we rest in the assurance that a higher power is leading us beside still waters, restoring our souls and guiding us toward peace and fulfillment. God's guidance, as described in Psalm 23, is not a one-time gift, but an ongoing presence, a constant companion in our journey. It invites us to trust, to remain patient, and to stay receptive to the subtle ways in which wisdom is offered. It reassures us that even when life feels uncertain, when our hearts are heavy and our steps unsure, we are being led, restored, and cared for in ways that are often unseen but deeply real. By embracing this guidance, we discover clarity amidst confusion, courage amidst fear, and peace amidst chaos. When we internalize this truth, our approach to life changes profoundly. We begin to live with intention, making choices rooted in faith rather than fear. We pause to reflect before reacting, seeking divine insight before making critical decisions. We cultivate patience, resilience, and discernment. And most importantly, we learn to trust in a guidance that is perfect, timely, and transformative. Guidance that leads us beside still waters, restores our souls, and illuminates the path toward purpose, peace, and fulfillment. Finally, Psalm 23 speaks of protection with words that pierce the depths of our fear and insecurity. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. There is a profound reassurance in this declaration. Life is unpredictable. Danger, hardship, loss, and uncertainty are inevitable. Yet, the psalmist declares fearlessness, not because the threats are absent, but because the presence of God transcends every shadow, every peril, and every fear that life might place in our path. This is not a promise of a life without challenges or pain. It is the assurance that no matter the darkness we traverse, we are never alone, and we are always under the shelter of divine protection. Think of a young woman walking home late at night, the streets dimly lit, every sound magnified by her racing imagination. Her mind races with fear. What if someone harms her? What if she encounters danger she cannot avoid? Yet in the midst of this anxiety, she whispers a prayer, trusting in God's protection. She walks steadily, cautiously, but with a quiet confidence in the unseen presence surrounding her. She arrives home safely, the tension that gripped her easing only after she crosses the threshold into safety. This is not mere coincidence or luck. It is a tangible illustration of the promise that God watches over us constantly, even when we feel vulnerable and exposed. It is a reminder that protection is not always visible, yet it is steadfast and real, enveloping us even in moments of fear. God's protection is comprehensive. It is physical, shielding us from harm in the tangible sense, but it is also emotional, guarding our hearts from despair, anxiety, and the crippling effects of fear. Psychologists and researchers have long confirmed the impact of a sense of safety on human well-being. People who believe in a protective presence experience lower stress levels, enhanced resilience, and better decision-making in high-pressure situations. Faith in protection allows us to confront challenges with courage rather than panic, to approach uncertainty with confidence rather than trepidation, and to maintain hope when circumstances feel dire. When we internalize this truth, fear loses its grip, and we find the strength to act decisively and calmly, even amidst chaos. Consider a family living in an area prone to natural disasters, floods, storms, or earthquakes. Each warning siren or threat of danger brings anxiety, uncertainty, and fear. Yet those who trust in God's protection do not live paralyzed by dread. They take practical measures to stay safe, yes, but their hearts remain anchored in the assurance that a higher power oversees their lives. This blend of faith and action exemplifies the true nature of protection. It empowers us to navigate danger wisely while remaining calm in the face of uncertainty. It is not passive, it is active, providing courage and clarity when fear would otherwise dominate. Protection also extends to the intangible aspects of life, the threats we cannot see, emotional toxic relationships, and societal pressures can erode our sense of security. God's protection shields us from the corrosive effects of these forces, offering a safe space within ourselves where peace, clarity, and resilience can flourish. A person facing betrayal at work or heartbreak in a relationship may feel as though the shadows are closing in. Yet the knowledge that God is guarding our hearts, thoughts, and paths provides an unshakable foundation. It allows us to respond with wisdom rather than reaction, to heal rather than harbor bitterness, and to emerge stronger despite the adversities we encounter. Real-life examples of divine protection abound, often in ways we fail to recognize until reflection later illuminates them. There are stories of drivers narrowly avoiding accidents, patients receiving miraculous medical recoveries, individuals evading harm in situations that seemed inevitable, and countless unseen ways in which danger is averted at just the right moment. These experiences, while sometimes subtle or fleeting, reinforce the reality of a protective presence in our lives. Protection is not always dramatic or visible. yet its effects are unmistakable when we pause to notice them. Walking through the valley of the shadow of death does not mean we are promised immunity from hardship. Everyone experiences fear, loss, and danger in some form. The valley represents these inevitable struggles, the dark and uncertain passages of life where our courage is tested and our faith is challenged. Yet the psalmist's words remind us that in these valleys, fear is not our final authority. God's presence transforms even the darkest moments into spaces of divine accompaniment, just as a shepherd walks beside the sheep in treacherous terrain, guiding and protecting them. So too does God accompany us through every shadow, every trial, and every threat. Think of the soldier in combat, the first responder rushing into danger, or the person facing a life-threatening illness. Their courage is remarkable, yet even they draw on a deeper source of strength, a conviction that they are not facing danger alone. This is the essence of the Psalm's promise. Protection instills confidence and bravery, not because the danger disappears, but because the presence of God outweighs the threat, providing a sense of safety and assurance that surpasses human understanding. Protection is also relational. It manifests not just through divine intervention, but often through people and circumstances placed strategically in our lives. A stranger offering assistance, a friend providing timely advice, a mentor guiding us through a crisis. These are tangible expressions of God's protective presence. Recognizing this requires attentiveness, openness, and gratitude, allowing us to see God working through the ordinary and extraordinary moments of our lives. Each act of care, each timely word, each unnoticed intervention can be seen as a thread in the fabric of divine protection. Moreover, understanding God's protection transforms how we live daily. It invites us to walk with courage and intention, knowing that even when circumstances seem threatening, we are not abandoned. Fear no longer dictates our decisions or limits our potential. Instead, we step forward with assurance, making choices that reflect faith, integrity, and resilience. This perspective allows us to face adversity with dignity, to act boldly in the service of others, and to navigate life's uncertainties without being paralyzed by worry. Protection does not eliminate challenges, but it equips us to meet them with fortitude and hope. The psychological and spiritual benefits of trusting in protection are profound. Faith in a protective presence reduces stress, promotes emotional stability, and strengthens problem-solving abilities. It allows us to remain calm under pressure, to maintain perspective when crises arise, and to act decisively rather than react impulsively. By internalizing this truth, we cultivate a sense of inner peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. We learn that true security is not the absence of danger, but the presence of God, who shields, guides, and strengthens us in every trial. Ultimately, the words of Psalm 23 invite us to a life of fearless faith. They remind us that even when we walk through the most treacherous valleys, even when darkness surrounds us, we are never abandoned. God's protection envelops us, guarding our lives, our hearts, and our souls. It is constant, unshakable, and profoundly personal. By embracing this truth, we are empowered to live courageously, act wisely, and find peace in the midst of life's storms. We come to understand that fear, while natural, does not have the final word. The presence of God does. The shadow of death may loom, but it cannot extinguish the light of divine protection that walks beside us every step of the way.